Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Tuesday, the 6th of September. Going to talk a lot about international news when it comes to crypto today. We're going to cover Australia. We're going to cover Russia. We're also going to talk a little bit about real estate as well in China, as well as here in the United States. So, going to jump right into the first story. So, here we are. shadowfi loses 301,000 to another DeFi exploitation. So it's according to Inside Bitcoins, and shadowfi did post this on their Twitter account. In another recent attack, a crypto private project listed as shadowfi suffered an exploitation by hackers. The exploitation claimed about $301,000. Again, they confirmed this on their Twitter. The attacker drained the liquidity pool, leaving it at literally $0. They disclosed that the SDF token's vulnerability contributed to the protocol's exploitation, and the vulnerability aided to the burning of the token, allowed anyone to carry out the burning without prior approval. Further, they added the hacker drained about 1,078 BNB, basically the 301,000. The blockchain security firm identified the hacker as Neorder DAO. The firm cited that the hacker's name is recorded in its internal database. So, another day, another hack. Something to keep it, again, keep a close watch on, see how this gets resolved from there. But saw this hit the news earlier today. Moving into a lot of international news, like I had mentioned, cryptos today is going to be internationally focused from here in the United States. The Europol put this out on their website today. They're basically saying the cryptocurrencies are key to tackling organized crime in the Europol and Basel Institute and governance. They're saying legislation is tightening. New EU regulations will ensure crypto assets are treated like any other asset for anti-money laundering regulations supervising. Basically saying investigators are taking advantage of the unique characteristics of this blockchain technologies to follow the money, allowing them to identify scammers and hackers, but more traditional organized crime groups and money laundering networks. They're saying they're increasingly treating virtual assets like any other asset. We always hear, cryptos, digital assets, virtual assets, and a lot of times, the person putting these, ideas out there don't really understand what the differences are, what they even mean. Private companies are innovating fast to provide tools and analytical capacity to trace funds laundered across multiple blockchains using different obfuscation techniques. So, for what it's worth, that's from the Europol. Moving into crypto.com, we're going to spend a little time on Australia. They partnered with a firm to survey Australian merchants and consumers about the future of transacting in crypto. Basically, they looked at their attitudes towards crypto just to use for everyday goods and services. Key insights include there is significant interest in having this happen. Over half, 55% of consumers and merchants, 54%, say they want to transact in crypto. About half, 47%, are ready to accept it or are already accepting it. With regards to making crypto payments, the ratio is 58% for consumers. And then both merchants and consumers prefer Bitcoin and ETH. Obviously, they claim a significant demand from consumers for an Australian dollar stablecoin. Who knows how much truth is to that in terms of like citizens wanting their a stablecoin, but I'm sure the governments do, but we'll see whether the citizens do when they understand what that exactly means. And here's a little chart, basically a graph to show you what the breakdown is, and I'll link all this into the description below for everyone to see. From here, the Australian State Police set up a crypto division to trace transactions. See how it's all kind of coming together. So there's a huge demand, but then there's also a demand from the police government to set up these divisions, these new divisions, to focus on illicit crypto transactions amid the AFP seizing a lot more criminal assets than the authority had originally inspected. So they said they reached its goal of seizing $600 million from financial crimes 2 years ahead of the schedule. It was originally set a target by the AFP-led Criminal Assets Confiscation Task Force, expected to be reached by 2024, but apparently they've reached that already. Since February 2 years ago, they seized $380 million in residential and commercial property, $200 million in cash and bank accounts, $35 million in cars, boats, aircraft, artwork, luxury items, and cryptos. So basically, the crypto seizures were small. At least they meant small compared to traditional criminal assets like property and cash. But the additional focus is they're assuming there's going to be more once they do more focusing on this crypto. And finally, from Australia, the government put this out today. The Australian government, the Treasury, I should say, the clarifying crypto is not taxed as foreign currency. They're letting basically people vote. So June 22nd, they announced that it would introduce legislation to exclude crypto, such as Bitcoin, from being treated as foreign currency for Australian income tax purposes. The legislation maintains that the current tax treatment of crypto assets and removes uncertainty following the decision of the government of El Salvador to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender, as we all know. So letting people vote up to September 30th. Interested parties are invited to comment on this consultation. So a lot going on in Australia. Finally, going to finish it with Russia. This is out from the Russian news agency. They eye stablecoin platforms for settlements with friendly countries. Here's a quote. We are currently working with a number of countries to create bilateral platforms in order to not to use dollars and euros. We offer mutually acceptable tokenized instruments that will be used on these platforms, which are essentially clearing platforms that we are currently developing with these countries. Stable coins can be pegged to some generally recognized instrument, for example, gold, the value of which is clear and observable for all participants, end quote. So that's the finance ministry and Bank of Russia earlier agreed that in the current conditions, it is impossible to do without cross-border settlements in cryptocurrency. And basically, they hope to resolve issues related to cross-border payments in cryptos during the autumn session of the state Duma lower house of parliament. So obviously, they want to get away from the U.S. dollar and the euro and transact in other, other currencies when they can. Obviously, there's where the stable coin comes into play. Moving into real estate for the day here. But keeping it international, China to issue $29 billion of special loans to finish these housing projects. I talked a couple weeks ago about how these developers were taking these deposits from buyers, just your everyday people, citizens, taking those deposits, not starting work, but then continuing to start taking deposits onto other properties and doing a little bit here, a little bit there. Obviously, with this economic crisis, they're not able to deliver. Some people are getting, some drywall on the sixth floor of a building saying, here's your condo. Sorry, can't finish it. So basically a liquidity crisis among the property developer crisis has led to a plunge in new projects, put 5% of existing construction on hold, sparking more payment boycott by angry homebuyers. It has sparked fears that the crisis will further squeeze the banks, which are already grappling with liquidity stress among developers. The strike also poses a risk to broader housing market by keeping homebuyers on the sidelines. So people are very reluctant to buy real estate, which typically they were never in that spot. But the central government will provide interest subsidies of 1% on loans to the policy banks for no longer than 2 years. Borrowers will be municipal governments. And then, of course, those special loans will be recorded as local government debt. Some more real estate here in the United States. The typical home now sells for less than asking price. The average home sold for less than its list price for the first time in over 17 months during the 4-week period ending August 28th, as the housing market cool down continued. Every month since March of 2021, we've seen an average sales to list ratio of over 100%, meaning the average home has sold for more than its final asking price after all price drops. This has finally begun to plateau. So despite the easing in home prices, demands for home buyers is still chilled. Mortgage applications, obviously, we saw over 6% last week. 5.66 was sort of the average we saw, but we did see it cross 6 last week. Home sellers, do they want to sell knowing they're going to have to get into this sort of volatility as well? So we're seeing a decline all around the board. So basically, this is like the last leading indicators that Redfin uses in this metric. So 30-year mortgage rates obviously went up to 5.66, but that's down from a high of 5.81, which was the year high so far, but up, from 3.22 from Q1. Further, fewer people are searching homes for sale on Google. The Redfin Home Buyer Demand Index was up, right? A measure of the home request for home tours was up 15% from the 2022 low in June, but was down 16% overall. Year over year. The touring activity was down 9%. And then mortgage applications were 2% down week over week, seasonally adjusted, and we're down 23% from a year earlier during this August 26th of last year. So that is the news today. Hope you all have a great rest of your day, and hit me up in the comments. Please like this video and consider subscribing to this channel. I do crypto and real estate news every day. The most important stories I feel make the most sense to share with you. So hope you all have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I'll see you all tomorrow.